Have you ever had a single day that felt like, well, an entire lifetime?
Oh, I know what you mean.
Right. And I don't mean that in the exhausting, when will this be over kind of way. I mean, think about a 24-hour window where you completely throw out the itinerary.
You just surrender to the sheer chaos of a city.
Exactly. And somehow you end up crashing a high-stakes public proposal, solving this holy mystery on a restaurant patio, and getting a private show from a comedy legend.
That sounds made up, honestly.
It really does. But today, we are diving into exactly that kind of day. It's an exploration of a brilliant short essay by John Novick Jr.
Titled An Astonishing 24 Hours in New York City.
Yes, which is this standout piece from his America Actually series.
It really is a fascinating document. We're specifically analyzing a single continuous window. It goes from late Saturday afternoon to Sunday afternoon.
That was August 5th and 6th, 2017, right?
Yep, experienced by John and his wife and travel partner Dana. And what makes this so compelling isn't just, like, a list of places they
I
went.
know, it's not a travel dad at all.
Exactly. It's the underlying psychology of how they chose to consume the city.
Yeah.
I mean, when most people hear New York City, the immediate associations are ambition, hustle, the grind.
Total sensory assault.
Right. It's geographically designed as a place where you keep your guard up. But Novick presents a radically different framework here.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because reading through their 24 hours, it honestly feels like watching a perfectly curated indie film.
Oh, totally.
You know the kind I mean. The protagonist is just wandering around. They have absolutely no strict goal or destination.
But every time they turn a corner, the movie switches genres.
Yes. 1 minute you're watching a tense romantic comedy, the next it's this surreal slice-of-life drama, and then it pivots into a stand-up special.
And John and Dana are just happily rolling with every single genre shift.
They just let it happen.
That indie film analogy is spot on because it highlights their passive yet highly observant mindset. They aren't trying to force the environment to yield a specific pre-planned vacation memory.
They're just functioning as open receivers.
Exactly. And because they're so open, they immediately find themselves pulled into a narrative that is intensely universal, but it's rarely witnessed from a front row seat.
Right. So their 24 hours kicks off in Central Park,
Right near the Bow Bridge.
which, if you haven't been, it's this incredibly picturesque, iconic cast iron bridge over the lake. I mean, it literally looks like a postcard.
It's beautiful. So they are near the bridge, just taking in the afternoon, when they're suddenly approached by a young tourist from Germany.
Just totally out of the blue.
Yeah. And this young guy is in the middle of orchestrating a proposal. He has this cloth red heart that he's made himself by hand, which he plans to kneel on.
Oh, wow. That is so specific.
Right. And he recruits John and Dana, two complete strangers, to stand behind him and hold up a banner.
A banner that reads, "Will you marry me?"
Yep, while he just waits for his girlfriend to cross the bridge.
See, this is exactly what I mean about the indie film. It's like volunteering to be an extra in a stranger's romantic comedy. You just get drafted into the cast.
You really do.
But here is the detail that absolutely floored me. John, clearly being a practical guy, looks at this nervous kid and asks him if he's actually sure what the answer's going to be.
And the young man's response is just staggering.
It's so crazy.
He looks at John and says, "Well, last week she said she's never getting married."
I'm sorry, what? Let me just stop right there because I have to push back on this a little bit. That is an insane level of risk.
It is a huge gamble.
But I find myself wondering, could this happen anywhere? We always hear about the quote-unquote magic of New York. But impulsive people exist in every zip code.
Sure they do.
You could buy a handmade heart and propose on a bridge in Omaha or a park in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
Is there actually something intrinsic to the environment of New York that makes people so impulsive? Or is it just that impulsive people buy tickets to New York?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's an excellent question. I would argue that it's a deeply symbiotic relationship. But the city itself is the primary catalyst.
Really? How so?
It acts as an instigator for audacity. To understand why this young German man took that leap, you have to look at how urban density functions.
Okay, the density of the crowds.
Yeah, New York has a very specific mechanism of compressing time and heightening reality. The sheer vertical scale of the architecture, the constant kinetic energy of millions of people moving around you.
It's definitely overwhelming.
It creates a psychological state where you feel like you are already part of a grand narrative. It makes a massive impulsive gesture feel not just appropriate, but almost structurally required by the environment.
That is a really interesting way to frame it. I always hear people describe the city as a pressure cooker for human connection.
Which is a bit of a cliche.
Yeah, that feels a bit cliche and honestly a bit negative. It sounds more like an algorithm running on fast forward.
Oh, I like that.
It's forcing collisions between data points, or in this case, human beings, at a speed that would never happen in a sprawling suburb.
That is a much more accurate metaphor. The algorithm is running at maximum speed. And to prove your point, let's look at where John and Dana go later that same weekend.
Oh, right, the restaurant.
Yeah, they visit a famous institution on 3rd Avenue called P.J. Clark's. It's been open since 1884. And they go there specifically to pay homage at a certain table.
And why that table?
Because it is the exact table where Buddy Holly proposed to his wife.
I love this piece of music history so much.
It gets better when you look at the timeline. Buddy Holly met this woman. She was a receptionist at a nearby music publishing company.
Okay.
He proposed to her at that table at P.J. Clark's exactly 5 hours after they first met. 5 hours.
5 hours. That is the time compression algorithm in full effect right there.
Precisely. And she said yes. They were married 7 weeks later, and he ended up writing the classic song True Love Waits for her.
Wow. 7 weeks.
When you analyze the German tourist in Central Park and Buddy Holly at P.J. Clark's side by side, separated by decades, but united by the geography of the city, you see the mechanism working perfectly.
Because the environment is the same.
Exactly. 5 hours in that dense, highly charged environment can produce the same emotional data as 5 months in a quiet town. The city strips away the time and space required for pretense. It forces immediate authenticity.
It really makes you wonder, why are we so afraid of grand gestures in our own daily routines? We stretch everything out, we play it cool, we wait for the, quote, right time.
We overthink it.
We totally overthink it. But in this 24-hour window, time is completely warped. By the way, spoiler alert for everyone listening. The German tourist's girlfriend, despite her declarations the week prior, she actually said yes on the boat bridge.
She did.
And John and Dana are now immortalized in the background of this couple's engagement photos forever, which is just amazing.
Just random strangers in the wedding slideshow.
Exactly. But it's one thing to have a high-stakes romantic collision. What happens when this mindset of surrender intersects with tiny, mundane objects, or just totally unpredictable strangers?
That brings us to a completely different type of serendipity. When you pack 8 million people onto a few small islands, the mathematical probability of bizarre overlapping storylines goes through the roof.
It's basically a statistical certainty that weird things will happen.
Exactly. It isn't just about romance. It's about the statistical anomalies of everyday life. For instance, the incident at the Bryant Park Grill.
Yes, the locket. This part was wild.
John and Dana are sitting on the patio, just relaxing, having a drink, when a couple from Long Island comes rushing back into the restaurant in an absolute state of panic.
Like frantic.
Frantic. They had dined there the previous night, and they're desperately searching for a lost item. But it isn't just a lost set of keys or a credit card.
No, it's much more specific than that.
It's a tiny painted image of Jesus that had fallen out of a locket. And crucially, this specific image had been blessed by Mother Teresa.
The emotional weight of an object like that is just incalculable. Losing that in a city of 8 million people, I can't even fathom the math on that.
The odds are basically zero.
It's like dropping a grain of sand on a beach and coming back the next day to find it.
It is a statistical impossibility. But John and Dana look down, and there it is. Less than a foot from their table on the patio. They just spot it.
Okay, let's talk about the two completely different ways this event is processed, because I think it says so much about human nature.
Oh, definitely.
The Long Island couple gets the image back and immediately declares it a profound divine miracle. And honestly, looking at the odds, you can completely understand why they'd feel that way.
It feels miraculous to them.
But John's reaction is what makes this essay so grounded. He looks at this miracle and deduces, with this brilliant, dry, Midwestern practicality, that the restaurant staff probably just forgot to sweep the patio the night before.
The contrast is wonderful, isn't it?
It's so funny.
You have this soaring spiritual interpretation colliding head-on with the gritty, mundane reality of restaurant operations.
The lazy busboy theory.
Right. But Novik's broader point is that the mechanism of the return is totally irrelevant. Miracle or a lazy busboy, the result is the same. What matters is the intersection.
The connection between the people.
Exactly. John and Dana were the perfect observant nodes in this massive network. sitting at the exact right coordinates to resolve this couple's crisis.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. We can talk about the algorithm of the city bringing objects back to people, but dealing with unpredictable human behavior requires a totally different level of surrender.
Oh, for sure. Objects don't talk back.
Right. Which brings us to my absolute favorite encounter of this entire 24 hours, the Elizabeth situation at Talbot's.
This is a perfect case study in what happens when you lower your defensive armor. Dana goes into a Talbot's to look at some blouses.
Just a normal shopping trip.
Yeah, just browsing. And while she's looking, an older woman named Elizabeth approaches them. And she simply insists on going into the dressing room with Dana.
And she doesn't just go in, she completely takes over.
She really does.
She starts offering this completely unrestrained, unfiltered fashion advice. She just appoints herself their personal stylist for the afternoon.
Without anyone asking her to.
Right. She is so committed to the bit that she actually walks them to the register and oversees the transaction.
While the actual paid employees of the store are just standing there watching this happen.
Completely amused by the whole thing.
Because Elizabeth wasn't just a random eccentric off the street. She had context. It turns out she was a former employee of that exact Talbot's location.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, she was currently out on medical leave. And it became glaringly obvious that she simply missed her job, her routine, and her sense of purpose.
She just wanted to be back at work.
When asked about it, her quote to them was, "I can't help myself, I'm here, so why not?"
She is literally like a video game NPC, a non-playable character, who has just glitch spawned into the real world to offer John and Dana a delightfully random side quest.
That is a brilliant way to put it, a real-life side quest.
But I want to pause here and ask you, the listener, a direct question. Think about your normal Tuesday. Think about being at your local mall or grocery store.
In your regular routine.
Exactly. Would you ever, in a million years, let a total stranger follow you into a dressing room to critique your outfit? Because I wouldn't.
No way. Most people wouldn't.
I would immediately put my armor up and say, "Excuse me, I'm calling security." What invisible barriers do we put up in our daily lives that block these kinds of interactions? Does being in vacation mode just magically dismantle those barriers?
Well, vacation mode certainly alters our brain chemistry. When you strip away the urgency of a schedule, when you don't have an inbox to check or a train to catch.
You're just existing.
Right. An interruption ceases to be an obstacle and instead becomes an interaction. But it also goes deeper into the sociology of work and identity.
How so? Like for Elizabeth?
Yes. For Elizabeth, her job was clearly a profound source of authority and community. Stripped of that identity by a medical leave, she gravitated back to the environment where she felt useful.
And the anonymity of the city actually protected her.
Exactly. In a small town, everyone would know she was on medical leave. They might pity her or politely ask her to leave.
It'd be awkward.
But in New York, the density provides cover. She can just slip back into her role, provided she finds a willing participant. And that is Novick's philosophy in action.
Being an open receiver again.
Yes. If you walk through the world rigid and defensive, Elizabeth is a boundary-crossing annoyance you call security. But if you walk through the world with fluidity, Elizabeth becomes a deeply human story.
You get a free fashion consultant for the afternoon.
And she gets to feel a sense of purpose again. You just have to say yes and to the city.
Yes, and. I love that, like an improv scene. So we've had the high-stakes romance on the Bow Bridge. We've witnessed a tiny statistical miracle on a patio.
We've been styled by a glitchy NPC in a Talbot's.
But the indie film hasn't reached its climax yet. Where does this 24-hour window peak? It peaks with the ultimate reward for surrendering to the city.
Top tier. Unbelievable entertainment when you're expecting absolutely nothing.
Which takes John and Dana down to the village, specifically to the legendary Comedy Cellar.
That's such a classic spot.
Now, they buy tickets for the 8:45 p.m. lineup. They get seated right in the front row, and John notes in the essay that they are fully expecting a lineup of comedians they have never heard of.
Which is standard for those shows.
Yeah, and they're totally fine with that. They're just there to soak up the atmosphere of a classic basement comedy club. But then, with absolutely zero fanfare or announcement,
Ray frickin' Romano walks out on stage.
the globally recognized television star, a comedy legend just dropping in on a random weekend.
He just shows up to test out some new material.
He does an impromptu 30-minute set. And the craziest part is the scale of it. There are maybe 150 people packed into this tiny room. It's incredibly intimate.
So rare to see someone that famous in a room that small.
Right. And John writes, simply, he killed. You pay a standard cover charge to see some up-and-comers, and the universe decides to hand you a private show from Ray Romano.
What's fascinating here, if we take a step back and look at the whole essay, is how this capstone event at the Comedy Cellar crystallizes a major paradox about John and Dana's relationship with New York City.
A paradox? What do you mean?
To fully appreciate this, we have to remember their background. They are Chicago born and bred.
Oh, yes. And he makes it a point to emphasize that they are fiercely proud of it.
Very proud.
They firmly believe Chicago is the best city founded in the 19th century and one of the most important on Earth. They are not New York apologists who think Manhattan is the center of the universe.
No, they are deeply loyal to the second city. Yet they recognize this beautiful contradiction. New York is globally renowned for its crushing, anxiety-inducing pace.
It's the city that famously never sleeps.
The epicenter of American stress. Yet this is exactly the geographic location these two Chicagoans choose when they want to relax and slow down.
I have to admit, that part confused me at first. So what does this all mean? How do you voluntarily travel to the most chaotic, stressful place in the country in order to find peace?
It seems completely counterintuitive.
It really does.
It seems counterintuitive until you understand that peace doesn't always come from isolation. Sometimes it comes from absolute surrender. When they go to New York, they intentionally arrive with no rigid agenda.
They drop the itinerary.
Because they aren't trying to conquer the city, because they aren't trying to extract a specific, highly scheduled value from it, they allow the chaos to just wash over them.
They become anonymous.
Exactly. In an environment where every single person around you is rushing, choosing to walk slowly and simply observe becomes a radical act of relaxation.
Oh, I see. It's the difference between trying to swim upstream against a rushing river and just flipping over onto your back and letting the current carry you.
That's a great way to visualize it.
If you fight the current of New York, if you try to control it, it will completely exhaust you. That is where the anxiety comes from.
But if you just float,
The current will carry you from a Novus German kid with a handmade banner to a tiny locket on a patio to Ray Romano in a basement. The real secret to this astonishing 24 hours wasn't just the inherent magic of New York.
it was John and Dana's active choice to be entirely passive.
Wow.
Novick phrases it beautifully in his conclusion. He acknowledges that New York certainly isn't everyone's cup of tea, and points out that this judgment usually comes from those who have never actually been there.
Very true.
But he writes that every once in a while you can live a lifetime there, in a day. That level of density, the sheer compression of human emotion, coincidence, and narrative is unparalleled.
A lifetime in a day. It really does sum up the entire experience. We've covered a massive amount of ground today on this deep dive, zooming in on just a single 24-hour rotation of the Earth.
A very eventful rotation.
From analyzing the audacity and time compression on Bow Bridge and at P.J. Clark's to understanding the mathematical serendipity at Bryant Park.
The Locket Miracle.
From breaking down the psychology of boundaries in the dressing rooms of Talbot's to sitting in the front row of the Comedy Cellar, it is such a brilliant, vivid reminder of how joyous and how deeply unpredictable life can be.
When we leave, just a little bit of empty space for serendipity.
Yes.
Yeah.
When we actively choose to stop trying to control every single minute and just let the world happen to us.
It is a powerful argument for the value of being an active, willing participant in the theater of everyday life. You don't have to be the director of your vacation.
Sometimes it's much more rewarding to just be in the audience.
Or occasionally, a willing extra holding a banner.
Exactly. So, as we wrap up this deep dive into John Novick Jr.'s essay, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. Think about the places you go in your own life when you feel the need to, quote, slow down.
Where do you naturally gravitate?
Do your instincts immediately push you toward empty spaces? Do you seek out the quiet woods or a deserted beach trying to escape the friction of other people entirely?
A lot of people do.
Or do you, like John and Dana, ever consider dropping yourself into an environment that is utterly chaotic just to see how humanity might delightfully surprise you?
Is a risk worth taking.
And furthermore, what would happen if you woke up tomorrow and treated your very own hometown with that exact same level of total surrender?
Oh, I love that idea.
If you threw away your routine for just 24 hours, stopped fighting the current, and just floated, what kind of lifetime might you discover right in your own backyard?